Kyle Krabs of the Draft Network here to take you through my second 2022 NFL mock draft of the season. All 32 picks in the first round, courtesy of the updated Super Bowl odds. Let's go. So as I look at these first 8 picks in this mock draft, one that really stands out to me as a fit that I like is Michigan defensive lineman, pass rusher Aidan Hutchinson with the New York Giants. I think a lot about all of the heavy-hitting interior defensive linemen that the Giants have brought in, and they've also tried to make some improvements in the pass rush room, and they drafted Azeez Ojulari in the second round of last year's draft. But Hutchinson is on fire to start this college football season. What he has been able to do to reinvigorate his draft stock and showcase that he is very explosive and refined and powerful, can convert speed to power, can win with counters with his hands. He understands how to set guys up. It's everything we thought we saw in a smaller workload in 2019 before the 2020 season came, in which I was very high on him at this time last year. And Michigan didn't play a complete schedule, and Hutchinson himself had his season cut short. Well, all of that is back on the table because he has been an absolute monster throughout the month of September for the Michigan Wolverines. And that level of versatility to be a guy who can play reduced down inside and play in the B gap, or alternatively can win with power off the edge and collapse offensive tackle sets, but can also win with quickness when you're sitting on his power rushes, really puts the Giants in a position where I think their front seven and their pass rush in general can be much more well-rounded than what it currently is constructed to be. And of course, the Giants defense from a points allowed perspective is off to a slow start. And one of the best ways that you can address that, especially when you have some of the talent that the Giants do have in the secondary to play versatile and match personnel, is to heat up the opposing passer. And the more you can do of that without having to bring extra bodies and win organically up front, which Aidan Hutchinson is certainly capable of doing, I think that would be a big, big win for the New York Giants and what they need to help get this defense onto the next level. Looking at picks 9 through 16, there's a fit that I really like, and it's Desmond Ridder, the quarterback from Cincinnati, to the Washington football team, who by the time this pick is made, seems like they're no longer going to be the Washington football team. They're going to rebrand the franchise. And what better way to usher in a rebrand than to bring in a new franchise quarterback? And we could say what we want about how fun of a style of play Taylor Heinicke has at the quarterback position. And obviously Ryan Fitzpatrick was never going to be anything more than a stopgap, but Washington swung and missed with Dwayne Haskins not that long ago. You need to figure this out, because with this defense and some of these skill players that the football team has at their disposal, there's no reason why with consistent quarterback play, you can't make noise and especially win the NFC East and get yourself a ticket to the dance every year. What I like about Ridder and his fit with Ron Rivera and the Washington football team is Ridder is prototypical size. He's 6'5", but beyond that, he's a really good athlete. And young quarterbacks that transition into the game these days, so many of them, when they have success and they hit the ground running, it isn't because their process is consistently good. It's because they're a good enough athlete that they can win off script. They can get outside the pocket. They can win as a runner. They can keep opposing defenses off balance in different ways other than just pre-processing the field, understanding where they need to go with the ball, and then getting their eyes in the right place as soon as the snap is taken. And Ridder, he's taken some really promising steps as a passer thus far this season from a consistency perspective. He didn't play his best game against Indiana, but he's going to have another opportunity to have that statement game against Notre Dame in a couple of weeks. So if he performs to expectation against Notre Dame, Ridder really has the opportunity, because of his athletic tools and his large body of work that continues to improve, to really catapult himself up the draft boards and potentially find himself in a strike zone for a team like Washington, who has a lot of really likable pieces on the roster. And now they just need the quarterback that's going to help set this thing to be a long-term success. With picks 17 through 24, who knew this was going to be a Cincinnati Bearcats exclusive segment? But I really like the fit with Myjai Sanders, the pass rusher from Cincinnati, with the Los Angeles Chargers at pick number 22. What I'm most a fan of with this pick is the Chargers. They obviously have Joey Bosa. They have a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball. But one move that they made this offseason was transitioning away from Melvin Ingram. And they don't really have a succession plan in place that makes me feel as though that identity of their defense from a pass rush duo is going to be maintained. Well, Sanders, he is really long, really explosive, really dynamic off the edge. And I think his potential to grow and develop in a place where he's going to be rushing the passer opposite Joey Bosa. So he's not going to have to be the man right away in the pass rush room. And when you look at some of the early successes in pass rushers in this year's NFL season, most notably Odafe Owe, who's playing really well in Baltimore to start the season. And the big thing with him was, well, he didn't have a single sack in his final season at Penn State. Well, he's already got a sack. He's got a critical forced fumble that allowed Baltimore to beat the Kansas City Chiefs in week 2. He's making impact plays, and it's all because of the traits. And when those traits are isolated against offensive linemen and you're not having to worry about dealing with extra attention as a pass rusher, I think it sets you up for success. And that's the opportunity I think that Sanders has in Los Angeles with Joey Bosa as he continues to develop some of his pass rush palette and get more versatile and setting up offensive tackles and understanding how to break down certain kinds of sets and hand fighting. He's only going to get more and more dynamic because he's got the uncoachables part of the game and rushing the passer down pat because he is a totally freakish athlete. And you put that on the field with Joey Bosa and you put that on the field with some of the other talent that the Chargers have. And I think that can really go a long way in helping the Chargers align themselves to be able to contend with high-flying passing offenses in the AFC West, like the Kansas City Chiefs and the Las Vegas Raiders. As I look at these final 8 picks, you knew I had to talk about my good old Miami Dolphins and their selection of wide receiver George Pickens from the University of Georgia at pick number 29, courtesy of the San Francisco 49ers, and why, amidst a horrendous start to the season from the Dolphins offensive line and pass protection, would I invest a first-round pick in yet another wide receiver, which they just did this past year in Jalen Waddle. Miami's investments in the offensive line have come almost exclusively through the NFL draft at this point. They've spent a first-round pick on Austin Jackson. They spent a second-round pick on Robert Hunt. They spent a second and a third-round pick on Liam Eichenberg. They spent 2 fourth-round picks on Solomon Kinley. They spent a third-round pick back in 2019 on Michael Dieter. Are you seeing the trend? There's young talent here in Miami, but if this offensive line is going to get right, they're going to have to go get established NFL talent and pay the premium that comes with it to bring them in-house and understand exactly what they're getting to help stabilize the offensive line. Whereas I look at the wide receiver room, yes, they brought in Will Fuller on a 1-year deal. Yes, they got Albert Wilson back from COVID opt-out. He's in the final year of his contract. Jakeem Grant, they restructured, cut 2 years off his deal. He can't hold on to the football as an offensive player anyway, and he's in a contract year. So now you've got Jalen Waddle, Devontae Parker, Preston Williams has not shown he's fully recovered from the foot injury that ended his season halfway through 2020, and he's not looking particularly explosive. He, too, is a player the Dolphins will need to make a contractual decision with. So, yes, the Dolphins invested a lot in the pass-catching group, but there's not a lot of long-term stability with this group. And Devontae Parker is a player who's not exactly a cheap player, where, they've been dealing with soft tissue injuries with Devontae Parker for seemingly his entire career in Miami. So George Pickens, the Dolphins have shown they're not afraid to go out and draft a player with medical red flags. Jalen Phillips with the wrist and the concussions last year. Jalen Waddle with the broken ankle last year. Tua Tagovailoa with the hip injury that he had in 2019 going into the 2020 draft. Like, those are 3 of your 5 first-round picks in the last 2 years, and they had medical red flags. If George Pickens is healthy, for my money, he's the most imposing physical talent at the wide receiver position, eligible for this year's class. And you saw that 4-game stretch that he played with JT Daniels last season in 2020, that if you feed him the football, he's got that alpha mentality to go up and get it. So as the Dolphins look to continue balancing size on the outside with speed in the slot with Waddle, Devontae Parker, and now George Pickens, I think you get a really exciting blend for keeping this passing game, having the best possible weapons to be an explosive play offense in 2022 and beyond. Thanks so much for checking out thedraftnetwork.com. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and visit thedraftnetwork.com for all of your NFL, college football, and NFL draft needs.